Hello and welcome. Today we're looking at a crochet plant holder. This crochet plant holder has a loop at the top so you're able to hang your work. And as you can see, it can hang a small weight. This is a small plant which it can hold nicely. The pattern for this is from Spotlight, which is an Australian craft store. I will put the link to the pattern in the details below this video. For this particular project, I'm using Motivera Craft Tee, which is a t-shirt yarn, and out of this ball I'm able to get 2 crocheted plant holders. Got a size 15mm hook and stitch marker. You'll also need scissors at the end to finish your work. So grab your materials, print out the pattern if you'd like to follow along, and let's get started. To start our work we need to chain 4. So I'm going to begin with a slip knot. To do that, wrap the yarn over my hand like this. I'm going to go under the first strand, grab the second and pull that through. Can then tighten this by just drawing them apart. We need to do 4 chains for our foundation row. Exactly the same using a big hook as we would be using a smaller hook. So 4 chains. 1, 2, 3 and 4. I'm then going to slip stitch into our first chain here to create a circle. Yarn goes over and I pull that straight through both. There's our foundation chain. For our first round we're doing 6 stitches into our foundation ring. The pattern is written in UK terminology, so it says 6 double crochet. I prefer to use American terminology, but that's what I'm used to with the patterns that I generally follow. So for me that would be 6 single crochets. The whole project is worked in the same stitches, so if you prefer UK terminology it will be all in double crochet. If you prefer US it'll be single crochet. I'll be using US terminology. So our first round, 6 single crochets into the middle of our foundation ring. So don't work into any of the stitches, find the middle, that's where you want to work. Hook goes straight through the work, yarn around the hook, bring it back, yarn around the hook again, straight through, and that's our first stitch. Because this is the first stitch of the round, I'm going to put a stitch marker on it so I know where to join at the end. What I will do with the stitch marker is, rather than go over both strands as I normally do, because this yarn is so thick, I'm just going to go over the first strand of the stitches that I need to mark. That's 1, we need to do 6. The other thing I'm going to do in this round is hold my tail here close to the work and crochet straight over the top. That way at the end that's 1 less piece that I need to finish off. That's 1 stitch. Repeating that. 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And that is the end of round 1. For round 2 we are increasing, so we're going to be doing 2 stitches into every stitch of our previous round. So I don't need to do a slip stitch, I don't need to chain or anything, I'm just going to work straight into this first stitch here. Just going to remove that stitch marker and 2 single crochets into the first stitch of the round. It's 1. What I'm going to do again, because this is the first stitch of the round, is put a stitch marker there so I know where to start my next round. 2. Next stitch. 3, 4, 5, 6, moving over, 7, 8, 9, 10, and my last stitch of the round, 11, 12, and that's the second round complete. For round 3, continuing to increase, but this time we're going to do a single crochet and then 2 single crochets into the next stitch. Single crochet, 2 single crochets. So let's begin. Remove that stitch marker. Just 1 single crochet into the first stitch. And because it's the first stitch of the round, I'm going to place that stitch marker there. 2 single crochets into the next stitch. 1 and 2. So again, that pattern is 1 single crochet, and then in the next stitch you do 2 single crochets. I'm going to recommend pausing the video here and continuing on with that pattern all the way around, and I'm going to see you when you get to the end. When you get to the end of this round, you should have 18 stitches. So that's 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets all the way around. Just finishing off round 3 with my last repeat, 1 single crochet and 2 single crochets into that last one. I'm going to show you very quickly how to count your stitches if you are new to crochet and unsure. Each loop at the top is a stitch, not this one, that's one we're working through. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and our first one, 18. For round 4, our pattern changes slightly. This time round we're going to single crochet into 2 separate stitches and then do 2 single crochets into the 1 stitch. Single crochet, 2 single crochets. So let's start this new pattern. Remove that stitch marker. First single crochet of the round, so I'm going to add my stitch marker here so I know where my round finishes. 1, 2, and then 2 single crochets into the same stitch. 1, 2. So again, 2 separate single crochets. 1, 2, and 2 into the same stitch. I recommend pausing the video here, continue around this round with that pattern, 2 single crochets, 2 into the same stitch. And when you get to the end, I'll meet you there, and we should have 24 stitches. Just completing the round, following the pattern, single crochet, another single crochet, and then 2 single crochet into that last stitch. 1, 2, and I have already counted and checked my work, and I'm up to 24 stitches. For round 5, still increasing, this time we'll be single crocheting into 3 stitches and then doing 2 single crochets into 1 stitch. So 1, first stitch of the round, adding that stitch marker back, 2, 3, and then we do 2 single crochets into the same stitch. 1, 2. So to repeat this new pattern, 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then we increase. We do 2 single crochets into the same stitch. 1, 2. Continue with this pattern all the way around, and I'll see you when we get closer to the end. At the end of this round you should have 30 stitches. Just completing round 5, repeating that pattern one more time. 3 single crochets, 1, 2 and 3, and an increase into the next stitch. So 2 single crochets into that same stitch. 1 and 2. And that's the first stitch of the next round. For round 6, it's our last increase round, so you might have guessed already that we'll be doing a single crochet into 4 stitches and then 2 single crochets into the same stitch. So let's do that. Remove that stitch marker. 1, first stitch of the round, so I'm going to replace that stitch marker. 2, 3 and 4, and then 2 single crochets into the next stitch. 1 and 2. I'm going to recommend that you pause the video here and you continue this pattern all the way around. 4 single crochets and then 2 single crochets into the next stitch. I'll see you when you get towards the end of this round, where you should end up with 36 stitches. Just finishing off the round with the last repeat. 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and 2 single crochets into that last stitch. 1 and 2. That's the end of increasing. Now we will just do 2 rows of straight single crochet. For round 7, we're going to do a single crochet into every stitch all the way around. First stitch of the round, so I'm going to replace that stitch marker, and then just single crochet all the way around. You can pause the video here, continue to single crochet, and I will see you when you get towards the end of this round. I'm just completing round 7 with my single crochets. One thing I wanted to point out that you might find if you're using this yarn, or one that might do a similar thing, is when you're pulling from the middle of the ball, it often twists a lot. So one thing I find easy to do is take my hook off and just turn my work around in circles like this, and that helps to unwind the yarn so it's not so twisted. I'm not overly fussed about it being scrunched up. I can pull that out, but it will just bounce back. So all I'm aiming to do is to not have the twists in my work. And by doing that means it can work up really quickly. So I'm just finishing off this round with my last few single crochets. And that's the end of round 7. Round 8 is another round of single crochets. So I'm going to move that stitch marker, do a single crochet, add that stitch marker back straight away, and continue to do single crochets all the way around. I think it's really important to use something for a stitch marker because, as you can see, it's really difficult to tell where your next rounds begin. If you don't have any stitch markers, you can use a coloured piece of string or wool. You could use a paper clip or even a safety pin. Just anything that you can use to tie around to mark where your rounds start and end. This is round 8, which is just single crochets all the way around, so you can pause the video here and I will see you when you get closer to the end of this round. Just completing round 8 with my last few single crochets. And now that we've done 2 rows without increasing, you can see that our plant holder is starting to take shape. Our edges are curling up, which is exactly what we want. For round 9, we start to decrease and we start to form that lip, that edge that's going to hold our plant in place. So to begin with, we single crochet into 9 stitches. First stitch of the round, so I'm going to replace that stitch marker. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now we need to decrease. I find the most effective way to give an invisible decrease is to work into the front loop of the stitches. So normally we work straight through both, but to decrease we pick up the front loop of the first stitch and the front loop of the second stitch. Yarn goes over, pull that through, yarn over, pull that through again. So we've just decreased here. We then single crochet into the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we repeat that. So we're going to decrease again, so grabbing the first loop of these 2 stitches, under that first one, under that second one there, yarn over, pull that through, a yarn over again, single crochet into the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're going to decrease again. So over the next 2 stitches, front loop only of that stitch and the next one. Pick up that first loop, pick up that next loop, yarn over, bring that through, yarn over, bring that through. And then we should have 9 stitches to get to the end of the round. We just single crochet into each of those. One thing to point out, when you do a decrease stitch, don't work into this part here because that's the part of the stitch we've decreased. That's our first stitch and our second stitch that we've decreased. Make sure you go to the next full stitch. Through both loops now, and 9 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8 and 9, which brings us to the end of the round. And if I show you this front now, you can see we've got a definite holding shape, and we're going to start working this lip. So you'll notice there'll be more decreasing around the front of our project to give us that lip to hold the plant. Round 10 is our next decrease round. Remove that stitch marker. We begin by single crocheting into the first 9 stitches. This is the first stitch of the round, so I'm going to replace that stitch marker. And we need to do 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. We're going to decrease the next 2 stitches. So to do that again, through the first part of the stitch, first loop, stitch 1, first loop at stitch 2, yarn over, pull that through, yarn over, through again. We're going to single crochet into the next stitch, and then we're going to decrease again, decrease 2 together through the first stitch, through the front loop of the second stitch, yarn goes over, bring that through, yarn over, bring that through again. We're going to single crochet into the next stitch, and then we're going to decrease again. This time though, we're going to decrease 3 together. So same deal, working through the front part of 3 stitches this time. Through the first one, through the second one, through the third one, yarn goes over, bring that through those 3 loops, 1, 2, 3, yarn over and through the last 2 loops. Single crochet again, decrease into the next 2 stitches, front loop of the first, front loop of the second, yarn over, bring that through, yarn over, bring that through, single crochet into the next stitch, decrease 2 together, so through that first stitch, through that second stitch, yarn over, bring that through, yarn over, close, and then we should have 9 stitches left to single crochet in to finish this round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Having done our decreases now, we can see a real pouch starting to form, not so much at the top but at the bottom, which is where we want to hang and hold our plant. Round 11 is our last round. For this one we're going to slip stitch around our edges, and we're going to do single crochets at the front just to extend that lip. So for a slip stitch, remove our marker, slip stitch, we go straight through, yarn over, bring it back through the stitch and straight back over the loop that's on our hook. Just going to replace that stitch marker. So that's 1, 2, you can do this either way, either turn your hook to the side, that helps to make it easier, 3 for slip stitching, 4, or if you like, you can grab your yarn and bring that loop over, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Now we do single crochet for the next 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, and then we slip stitch our remaining 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9, back to the start. And you can see now at the front of our work we've got a clear lip and pouch, so it's really going to hold up our plant. The only thing now left to do is our loop. To finish off our work and do our hanging loop, we're just going to remove that first stitch marker, slip stitch into our first stitch, chain 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. I'm going to turn our project around and we need to slip stitch into the last stitch. So this is the first one here that we've chained out of. We want to slip stitch into this one next to it. The yarn goes through, over our work, straight through. And then to finish it off, because that's not incredibly neat, we're going to slip stitch all the way around our work. So bring a fair amount of the yarn through and then turn your work around so that yarn is going to go around the front of it. You might also want to make sure at this point that your yarn is open and not twisted or flat, just to give better coverage. Okay. So you'll hook up, loop up in the air, bring your work all the way around the front and slip stitch into the back. I'm going to slip stitch back into this same stitch that I've just worked out of. Pull that through. You can then cut your yarn. Pull that through to secure it. And then all you need to do is weave that through your work. And if we go back to the front, we can just spread out that yarn a bit more, make it neater, and that's our hanging project finished. Hope you enjoyed this. I hope that it was beneficial and that you were able to create the same project. Please join me on some of my other projects and leave a message below if you have any feedback. Thank you.